Well, hey there, everyone. Apologies for the speech. Today is day 6 after getting my wisdom teeth out as of filming right now. So, my jaw's still pretty tight and it's a little hard to talk. But because of that, we're going to be doing a pretty chill craft this week. Now, the craft in question is going to be making felt plushies. Now, given the season of Summerween, and I want to be in this boo mood to make me feel better, I'm going to be doing a Mothman plushie, which is my favorite cryptid and the most smashable cryptid. Now, alongside the Mothman plushie, I'm going to do 2 little baby moths to act as his little henchmen. But our main thing is going to be the Mothman himself. So let me kick it on over to Design Heather to tell you about the design of our Mothman. Hello, this is Day 10 Post Wisdom Teeth Heather, and I can speak much better now. So let's talk about the design for this Mothman. So I want him to look pretty cartoony and kind of simple just because I'm new to doing felt art. So that means I'm going to give him a pretty simple body, just like a little stick figure looking guy, and then some nice big wings with some layer and depth to them, and of course his little antennas and a little scruffy around the neck. Okay, so here's the little rough sketch of my Mothman here. So he's going to have a pretty simple body here, and then he's got his 2 little antennas, his obvious red eyes, and then a little like gray scruffy there. And then the wings are going to have like 3 layers basically. So it's going to have an underneath black wing, and then a top little gray here, and then a bottom secondary, probably black, but I just did it in dark gray to differentiate for the colors here. So it's going to be a pretty simple design, I think, but still really cute. And it's obviously going to be bigger than this, so this is just what we have got here. So let's go ahead and talk about his little henchmen. So I might do something a bit more simple for the moths, like something like this, but as you can see, there's a ton of like really intricate moths. So I'm gonna see how worn out I am after Mothman, and then see what kind of other moths I want to do. Okay, so now that we have the design all laid out, let's go ahead and kick it back to Intro Heather to talk about the materials. And welcome back. So let's talk about materials. So I did go to Walmart and pick up some soft felt for this, and then I have some more felt coming in with some like brown earthy toned colors, but the black is the main one that we need because of Mothman. So pretty much the first thing I have to do is I have to make the pattern pieces for this bad boy. I would have bought something, but I felt like this was just easy enough to make myself and do it, so I'm just gonna do that. So I need to make those pattern pieces and then cut them out of the felt, and then from there it's just like a bunch of hand sewing and stuffing with stuffing, and then that's pretty much it. So it's gonna be a pretty chill craft week this week, which is very much needed because I need to heal. Alrighty, so I need to go ahead and make that pattern and then go ahead and start cutting everything out. So I'll see you back in a little bit. Now to make the pattern, I'm basically just going to do kind of the same exact style as my little doodle over here. And so it's just going to look like that, but bigger, which is kind of really cool to do. Again, the body is just going to be like a really simple figure, and then I can do the wings and all of the other attachments later. So once I've made my pattern out of these pieces, I can just cut it out of this paper. And then the way that I found the best way to get the pattern onto this felt is I'm just going to take some tailor's chalk and just kind of like make an outline of these little things so that I can cut them out. And with each of these pieces, I am doing 2 layers of felt through so that I can have a front and a back. For the little antennas, I'm going to do a bit of a stiffer felt, and I am only doing 1 layer per antenna. This is incredibly niche, but I don't know if anybody else has listened to this podcast, but it's called Dungeons and Daddies, which is a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. But this season they're doing a Call of Cthulhu campaign, and it does have Mothman in it. So while I'm making Mothman, I'm listening to like these hilarious people with a Mothman in their campaign. And I swear to God, they had me cracking up like every single episode. I love them so much. Okay, so this is what we have got so far. So I haven't done the little scruffy part or the eyes yet because I kind of want to build the body first, and then measure those after this is all put together. So I'm basically just going to hand sew all the way around and then stuff it with some stuffing. And then after that, that's when I can do the scruffy in the eyes. And then I can do the wings. So the wings do have 2 layers in them, except for the gray, that's just 1. So I can start to sew all those together, but let's go ahead and get the little body done first. And I think reference wise is looking really, really cute. So this is going swell. We also can't forget Mothman being canonically double cheeked up on a Thursday. So because of that, I'm just gonna give him his 2 little buns that are kind of uneven just on that first layer before I start sewing everything together. Now it is time to finally hand sew, so I'm just taking some embroidery thread and I'm not like separating the threads or anything. I'm just going to use the whole string, and I'm just going to go around all of the outside of these pieces, and then while I'm doing that, I'm going to stuff it with some stuffing. And then I pretty much just do that forever. Now for the little eyes, I am going to use, again, just a stiffer felt, and I'm just going to cut out little circles, and instead of sewing them on, I thought it would just be a lot easier to hot glue them on, same with the antennas. Now once I had my little Mothman done, I was able to accurately measure how long I needed the scruffy to be. So once I cut out just like a little gray strip of this felt, I kind of just cut out some, I guess, scruffy looking edges on the top and bottom, and then I could hot glue it around his neck. I then added just a little bit of detail with some acrylic marker onto the eyes and the scruffy. Okay, this is what I have so far. So I just have the little guy himself with canonically big cheeks. So I think comparison wise, it's looking really good to my little doodle there. So tomorrow I'm going to work on the wings, and then probably the next day I'll do his little henchman. So I will see y'all in day 3. Alrighty, so it is day 3, and this is where we're at so far. Focus on Mothman. You got it. There we go. Whoop. Got his little uneven cheeks there. So, this is looking really good. So the next thing that I have to do is the wings here. So let me kind of tell you the plan that I've got going on. So I have the 2 layers of the black wing and then the 1 layer of the gray. So I'm going to sew on the gray first, and then I'm going to sew all of this together, but I'm planning on putting a wire up through the top here so that I can like maneuver the wings kind of how I want it to. So that needs to happen, and then I'm going to add some just like hand sewn details on the wing. And then the bottom wing I'll probably just like hot glue to the back after I've sewn the 2 pieces together, and then I can figure out some way to put it on the back of our Mothman. So hopefully I get that done today, and then Mothman will be done, and then tomorrow we can move on to the little henchman. So let's go ahead and get started. Now for the wings, again, I'm just going to be working with this first layer here without the back of the black wing, and I'm going to sew just along the top of that gray piece there. And then I'm not going to sew along the bottom because I thought that it would just look a little too rough. So I'm just going to add the line details on the wings and leave it at that. And then I could finally add the back of this wing here. So I'm just going to sew along the top, and then I'm going to take a little break there. So after I do that, I'm going to sew the wire channel into the top of the gray and black felt there. And then I can slide my wire in and then continue to sew all the way around the rest of this wing. And then after that, the last step was to add the details into the black wing, and then it was done. Okay, so here is one of the finished wings. So I've got the wire in there, I've got all the details added, and everything's all like sewn up. So that's looking pretty cool. So I still need to do the little wing underneath. I just need to sew that together, and then it goes here, and then it goes at the bottom there. So after I do that, then half of the wings are done. And I'm just going to do the same process for this wing as the other wing. So I'm going to sew the gray on top of the first layer, and then add the details, and then add the back layer of this. Put the little place in for the wire, put the wire in, and then finally add the last details to this wing. So I'm going to catch you back after all of that, and then see how I connect it to the back. Probably hot glue. And then for the smaller secondary wing, I am just going to take those 2 layers and sew all the way around and not add any more detail because most of it's going to be hidden anyways. And then I just do the same exact thing to the other wing. Alrighty, so it is the last day, so let me show you what I've got so far. So I've got our main body of our Mothman done, and then I've got both of the wings done, and also the bottom wings. So now I just have to put all of these together. So I'm likely just gonna hot glue them onto the back of this little guy and then call that good. Now a little bit of a change of plans for the henchmen. So I was gonna do just like a regular little moth for the henchman, but I am running out of time, so I think I'm just gonna do one little henchman and I'm gonna change it up a bit. So I'm gonna make it just like a little mini Mothman here, just very simple, just like two little pieces of felt just sewn straight together in this kind of blobbed form of Mothman. Nothing like super intricate, so that's gonna be our little henchman, and it's just gonna be like a little Mothman that the regular Mothman bosses around. Okay, so let's get to hot gluing on the wings, and then we can do our little henchman guy and then move on to the final look. Now I could have found a better way to put these wings together, but I just thought the easiest way was to hot glue it, of course. So first I'm going to hot glue the secondary wings onto the back of the main wings. And then I'm just going to put like a whole hot mess of hot glue onto the center of the wings and then just smush my little Mothman boy down. Now the wings weren't quite sturdy enough, so I am going to add some little like stabilizer felt pieces on the back. So one piece is going to go across the two wings to kind of keep them together and not fall forward. And then the other one is going to go along the back of the Mothman just to keep everything upright. And now it was time for my little moth boy. So again, once I've made the pattern that looks pretty much just like the sketch that I made, I'm just going to take my tailor's chalk and give it a little outline of this felt piece. And again, I am just doing 2 layers of this, so once I've marked out the stencil, then I could cut it out. Then this is going to be pretty simple because I'm not going to really have that many details like I did the other Mothman, so I'm just going to sew it all the way around with a regular hand stitch and then stuff it as I go. And then lastly, I just needed its little Mothman eyes on and its little antennas glued onto the back. And then once I've added just a little bit of an acrylic marker detail on the eyes, we are ready for the final look. I have gained a new son. And his son. I think these turned out so freaking cute. especially compared to the little like drawing I did. Come on. Come on, focus on the drawing. Like, phew, that's pretty freaking good. It's almost like one of my drawings came to life, and it's actually kind of surreal. Even with like little guy here, which actually turned out to be a little bit smaller than the reference, but that's okay. This turned out like a million times better than I expected him to, and I love him so much. Yeah, although I absolutely despise hand sewing, this was worth it for the product, and I did get used to it a bit, so it wasn't like too bad. But when I started, I was like, God, I hate hand sewing. But yeah, now I have a little Mothman plushie. It's gonna probably go on my bookshelf or something, and his henchmen can go off and commit crimes. So I feel like I've entered into the like felt plushie art. There's a lot of like really cool ones that I've seen that I do want to try out later, but this was just kind of like a first easy attempt at it. It was fairly simple just because it was like just kind of stacking things and sewing them rather than doing like pieces and parts to make like an actual like 3D plushie. So this was a good beginner project for me for that. But in the future, I will be attempting to do some more complex plushies that probably involves a little bit less hot glue. And I liked adding the like acrylic marker detail on his little scruffy and his eyes, because I did that in the reference just kind of for fun and for detail, but I think it really like brought out the cartoonish part of the plushie, and I think it just worked really, really well. Especially because the sides of a scruffy here are flat, because I couldn't exactly get like the little scruffy texture on the sides. So it kind of just like brings out the scruffiness. So yeah, thanks for hanging out with me while I made these little guys. And hopefully this helps somebody make their own little Mothman. So ain't here to do. If you like what I did, go ahead and like and subscribe. I post most Saturdays, mostly at noon, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you for watching!